Hey everybody, my name is Jesse Collins, and I want to tell you all about my show, the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. On the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, we do a thorough analysis on the biggest issues and trends within the pro wrestling industry. We talk a lot about pro wrestling media, we talk a lot about fan culture and wrestling's place within general pop culture, and we talk about the broader influences that are shaping the way we discuss and analyze the pro wrestling industry. We've had some of the brightest minds in the pro wrestling intelligentsia on the show, including WrestleNomics host Brandon Thurston, both Rich Craich and Joe Lanza from the Flagship Wrestling Podcast, Trevor Dame from the Through the Years podcast, and a whole lot more. This isn't a show for hot takes. It's not a show recapping the latest episode of television. This is a show focusing on the biggest topics in pro wrestling and doing a deep dive on the real stories behind the surface level analysis you might find elsewhere. The Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts, and we'd really appreciate it if you gave us a try. Thanks.
It's showtime! Instant Reaction Live, Revolution 2024. I'm Joe. He is Rich.
Yo.
And we may have just witnessed an all-time classic. Well, we have just witnessed an all-time classic moment in pro wrestling history. We may have just witnessed an all-time classic show in pro wrestling history. That was a phenomenal pro wrestling show before the main event. And then the main event was just something special and beautiful and something that reminds you why you love this silly, dopey sport. And just took this show from just a standard issue, great wrestling show,
right? Just
show
the
of the year contender.
the standard issue AEW monthly or quarterly. Well, it's getting monthly. Hey, is this one of the best wrestling shows we've ever seen? We do that a lot with AEW shows, and we did that, and we are going to do that. But I think this one had a little something special, like you're saying. It felt like a little bit above that because of what we saw in that main event.
Yeah, and then once the main event happens, it becomes something so memorable that nobody who watched it will ever forget it. And I don't know what that means in terms of where you would place a show like this. It would have to be right there with any other AEW show of all time, whether it's what was the Danielson debut show with Punk, all out 2021 or
all out 2021,
all out 2021 or last year's Revolution, which was the show of the year. Or
last year's Revolution was right up there in terms of matches where you go look at the Voices of Wrestling match of the year. At the end of that, the scattered throughout the countdown was matches from that show, and now they come back this year and have arguably a better show in this year's. It's in the pantheon there. You got All Out 2021. You have Revolution from last year. All Out 2023. I know a lot of people put that one pretty damn high, obviously with the Starks Danielson and Orange Cassidy and Moxley, and just a lot of other stuff on that show that really stood out too. Forbidden Door 2022. We're gonna have to get ready to. This show's in that realm. If it's not the top of all of them, it really is.
Realm for sure. I think the difference would be a lot of those other great shows, like last year's Revolution. There's never been an AEW show with a moment quite like the main event provided tonight. You go to that All Out 2021. Yeah, you had the Danielson debut and CM Punk's first match, which, some AEW fans are going to look back on, and that's kind of ruined in their eyes. I mean, not to me, but I could see where some AEW fans are like, that's all tarnished now with what happened, gesturing around afterwards. So I think that's what sets this show apart. I think on top of the fact that this was just a great, great pay-per-view and a great, great wrestling show with nearly 17,000 people in Greensboro, which I don't think is being talked up enough as an incredible feather in Sting's cap and AEW's cap to put this together. When you consider that their rank and file shows are barely drawing 3,000 fans and they put 17,000 people into Greensboro for this show for Sting's retirement. So within that context, especially, it's going to be one of the biggest shows in Greensboro, I think, in over 20 years. They didn't just buy tickets and sit on their hands. They were red hot from the start of the show until the end of the show. And they're probably red hot right now as we're talking, as, Sting's doing whatever he's doing after the pay-per-view broadcast cuts off. But I think the other big theme that we have to talk about right at the top would be that from start to finish, Sting's run in AEW, this is, look, say what you want about Tony Khan. I think he takes too much shit from the standpoint of his booking. I think that obviously he's a good booker because look what he's done with this startup company and how successful they are. So obviously he knows what he's doing to some degree. I don't love everything he does, but one thing you cannot knock is how he has booked and handled Sting's entire run from start to finish with not one slip up anywhere along the way.
Hey kids, do you like wrestling? Well, we like wrestling too. We are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Myself and Chris Novembrino kind of doing a lazy river of wrestling criticism, going through the news and whatever happened in stateside television wrestling. And also, you know what? Sometimes we just like to watch old stuff and talk about that too. Love for you to give us a listen. If you haven't already, we are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.